continue in the book of Ruth, and last week we left off on verse 11. And what had happened is that Naomi gave Ruth instructions to go to the threshing floor, and when all the work was done and all the feasting was done, she was going to go uncover his feet and lay down there, and he ended up discovering her and asked would he cover her with the corner of his robe, and he did, and this was like a marriage contract. So that's kind of where we were at. He said that he was really impressed because he's an older man, and she was young, and he's thinking she could have anybody, and why would she choose me? So it really ended up being beautiful that not only was he to be her kinsman redeemer, they were actually literally in love.
That's nice.
It is. It's always nice when you're married to love the person. Okay, so we're going to pick it up with verse 12. And now it is true, they're still talking that night, that I am thy near kinsman. Howbeit, there is a kinsman nearer than I am. So, he's an honest man. He knows she has one kinsman who's closer in relationship to Elimelech than he is. He said, stay here this night, and it shall be in the morning that if he will perform unto thee the part of a kinsman redeemer, well, let him do the kinsman's part. But if he will not do the part of a kinsman to thee, then I will do the part of a kinsman to thee, as the Lord liveth. Now lie down here until morning. And she lay at his feet until morning. And she rose up before one could recognize one another, so it was still pretty dim. And he said, don't tell anyone that you came to this floor. Okay, I want to explain what's going on here. First of all, he told her not to be traveling at night. That was kind of a dangerous thing to do in those days. Just like it would be now. It's like, walking out on a lonely road. You don't want to have a woman doing that at night. But there was another reason. We're going to get to this in a minute. That the gate of the city would be closed. They closed the gate at night because that was to protect all the residents of the city. So she couldn't go home. And it makes it clear that she slept at his feet, so you know that there was no impropriety. And he said, bring your veil that is upon you and hold it. And when she held it, he measured 6 measures of barley and laid it on her, and she went to the city. And when she came to her mother-in-law, she said, I guess she knocked on the door. She said, who art thou? My daughter? And she told her all that the man had done to her. So she was not basically saying, who are you, but how are you? And she said, these 6 measures of barley he gave me, for he said unto me, go not empty unto thy mother-in-law. Now we didn't hear that. When he gave her this, we didn't hear that, but we find it out now that that's what he said to her. You're not going to go to that house without grain. Because they had just had this huge pile, remember? So he just gave her a portion of that. And she said, sit still, my daughter, until you know how the matter will turn out. For the man will not rest until he has finished this thing this day. So she knows how Boaz loves her, and Naomi saying, oh, he's going to take care of this thing right away. This isn't going to just be something he'll get around to. He's going to take care of it right away. So now we're going to chapter 4. Verse 1. Then went Boaz up to the gate. This is the gate of Bethlehem. And sat down there. And behold, the kinsman of whom Boaz spake of came by. And he said unto him, hey, turn aside and sit down here. And he did. Now I want to tell you about what the gate means. All the cities, you remember that when the children of Israel came into the promised land, and they came to Jericho, do you remember the whole city was walled? And they walked around those walls. Even today, Jerusalem, Bethlehem, they're still walled cities. And the gate would always be a place where they would take care of business. Even sometimes a judge would sit there. And business transactions would all be done there, and they would be done in the presence of other people, so there would be witnesses. So, actually I wanted to tell you about a couple instances of gates in the Old Testament. One was Lot. When he was in Sodom and the two angels came to rescue him and his family, he was sitting in the gate. The Bible says he was a righteous man. So that meant that they realized that, and they put him there to settle disputes. Another time was Samson. He was in Gaza seeing some prostitute. And the Philistines were angry at him for a lot of things that had happened in the past. So they stayed by the gates at night, and they figured he's going to have to come out in the morning. And you know what he did? He picked up, these were iron gates. He picked up the gates and the posts that were holding him down, put him on his back, and carried him up to a mountain. Oh, Samson, yes. But here's the thing. He took the security of that city. That was a bigger point. They were hanging out at the gate to kill him, and he said, I'm taking away the security of this town because of what you're doing to me. And then another time was when Absalom was trying to take over Jerusalem from David. He sat in the gate and disputed things for people. He settled arguments, and he was getting a lot of favor with the people. He was doing that on purpose to try to be more popular than David. So those are some instances where people were doing this kind of business at the gate. And so he knew that this relative would eventually have to come in or out, because think about it. All the fields where they did their work, their barley and their wheat, it was all obviously outside the gate. It was, the fields outside Bethlehem. So everyone had to go in and out of that gate at some point. So he knew if he sat there, he'd see this guy. And he did. Verse 2. And he took 10 men of the elders of the city and said, sit down here. And they sat down. Now the reason why he wants these 10 men there is to witness this transaction. Because later on the guy might say, hey, I never said that. So that's why he's going to have witnesses. And he said unto the kinsman, Naomi is come again out of the country of Moab, and has sold a parcel of land, which was our brother Elimelech's. And I thought to let you know about this. Buy it before the inhabitants, meaning before all these people, and before the elders of my people. If you will redeem it, redeem it. But if you will not redeem it, tell me, that I may know. For there is none to redeem it besides you, and I am after you in order. And you know what he said? I'll redeem it. And you notice he didn't mention Ruth. He's only mentioning Naomi and Elimelech and the land. But he must have been really disappointed that the guy said yes. So now he's got to tell him about Ruth. Well, you know what? I want to tell you something first about this land. Okay. There's something in the Israelite law, the law of Moses, about everyone getting their land back. And it's called the year of Jubilee. And in this year, everyone who lost their land because of debt or whatever, it goes back to the original owner. And if you were a slave, let's say you had a debt and you couldn't pay it off. Well, you'd serve that person and be a slave to that person until your debt was paid off. But the year of Jubilee, all debts were paid off and everyone went back to their house. It was like an equalizing thing that God had put into motion. And so also he had every 7 years, there would be a Sabbath year. So you would work your lands. These people were all agricultural people. They would work their land for 6 years, And then the 7th year, don't plant, don't reap. But God said, I'll give you on the 6th year 3 times more than you need to cover you through that year, because leaving the land to rest is actually good for the land. It's good for growing crops. So when 7 of these have passed, that's 7 times 7 is 49. The next year, 50th year, is always a year of Jubilee. And how that would start was that Jubilee obviously means it's a joyful, happy time. And it would start by blowing the ram's horn on the Day of Atonement. And when that happened, all these things would be happening on that day. Everything would be going back to the way it was 50 years ago. So it was a time of love, a time of joy, a time of justice, and a time of liberty. And I want to read you a verse that talks about that. It's Leviticus 25:10. And there's a reason why I'm reading you this particular verse. And ye shall hallow the 50th year, and proclaim liberty throughout all the land, unto all the inhabitants thereof. And it shall be a jubilee unto you, and ye shall return every man unto his possessions, and ye shall return every man unto his family. That verse is inscribed on the Liberty Bell in Philadelphia.
That's right.
That very verse, because our forefathers were religious people, and they knew that that verse talks about liberty, liberty for all. And so I think it's really a beautiful thing that that's on there. So on that year, that 50th year, actually Naomi could have waited until the 50th year and she would have got her land back. But we don't know where they were at. You know, maybe Jubilee had happened 20 years ago and she's going to have to wait 30 years. So that's why the Kinsman Redeemer is coming into place. So anyway, when this guy says, okay, I'll do it, you know, I'll buy that land and redeem it back for Naomi. Boaz once said, gosh darn it, now I'm going to have to tell him about Ruth. So this is what he says in verse 5. Then Boaz said, what day you buy that field of the land of Naomi, you must buy it also from Ruth, the Moabitess, the wife of the dead, to raise up a name of the dead upon his inheritance. Okay, so I want to tell you how the land is tied to her and her dead husband. He's saying she's got to raise up kids on the land of her husband. That would have been that parcel of land. Then Boaz said, the day that you buy the field of the hand of Naomi, for Naomi, you must buy it also for Ruth the Moabitess, the wife of the dead, to raise up the name of the dead upon his inheritance, upon the son's inheritance. And the kinsman said, oh, I cannot redeem it for myself, lest I ruin my own inheritance. You redeem thou the right to yourself, and I am not going to redeem it. Now, when he says he's going to mar his inheritance, this is what he's saying. Okay, if I marry this woman and she has a son, maybe he had other children that were daughters. Daughters could inherit if there weren't any sons. But this is what he's saying. If she has a son, then everything I own is going to go to that son. And what about my other children, who obviously must have been daughters, because the son would always have preeminence on inheriting. So he's saying, hey, I don't want to risk all of my land on this woman. You do it. Verse 7. Now this was a manner in former time in Israel concerning redeeming and concerning exchanging, for to confirm all things. A man would pluck off his shoe and give it to his neighbor. And this was proof of the cooperation of that guy. And all those 10 witnesses would see this happening. So there's no going back on this. He can't say later, yeah, I really want Ruth. Can't do it, because he took off his shoe and handed it over. Therefore the kinsman said unto Boaz, you buy it for yourself. So he took off his shoe. And Boaz said unto the elders and unto all the people, ye are witnesses this day that I have bought all that was Elimelech's, and all that was, these are the boys' names, Chilion and Mahlon. Mahlon was Ruth's husband, of the land of Naomi. This is what's happening. Naomi is probably there at this time. And what he's doing is he's buying it back, and he is going to give Naomi the portion of Elimelech. And then he's keeping the portion of the two sons. But he's not even giving her the land, he's giving her the value of the land. So he's paying her off because she deserves something. Moreover, Ruth the Moabitess, wife of Mahlon, have I purchased to be my wife, to raise up the name of the dead upon his inheritance, that the name of the dead be not cut off from among his brethren. See, this was to perpetuate that family's name. And from the gate of his place, ye are the witnesses this day. First of all, Naomi, like I said, had to be on the scene to say, yes, you can take it all, and she's going to take a portion of the value. Because actually, if you redeemed it back, it would go to Naomi. And so Naomi's saying it's for Ruth and for, to raise up to the dead. But he said, I purchased her to be my wife. So we've talked about this before, but we're going to keep talking about it. He was the Goel, the Kinsman Redeemer, who purchased his wife and purchased that land. And what this is all symbolizing in the New Testament is Jesus Christ himself being kin to us. And he was a Goel. He purchased us with his own blood.